When investing your time in what is to be done, risk comes from not knowing what you are doing. This is why we start at the foundation of the foundation. Well, here we are. On today's episode of Getting Better Tomorrow, we will attempt to get better today, starting with the warm-up. As usual, we start with a little warm-up, nothing crazy, from simple to complex, from slow to fast. Start off with some ball slams, then we move on to the fingertip drills, adding a little arm into it, just the basics. We add a little torso rotation, a little shoulder mobility, a little torso mobility. Still focusing on the fingers, tapping it back and forth. And we move on to the single hand fingertip version. Projecting that ball outward, inward, above you, below you, to the side, to the midline. Circular motions, such as the figure 8, or even just a plain circle if you want. Make sure those fingertips are moving quickly. Warm them up. Left hand, right hand, left hand if you're right-handed, or weak hand, strong hand, weak hand in general. We've done all these before. None of these warm-up movements should be foreign to you. I've talked about them in depth in other videos, so I won't have much to say here other than we're using it to warm up, training later. As you can see, this replicates all kinds of layups, getting that ball out of the opponent's reach so it doesn't get blocked or pinned, and being able to control it in general while going up with the ball in one hand. Do some shoulder rotation stuff, do some shoulder circle stuff. Remember, in most sports, it will always be important to have shoulder mobility. You want to warm them up to make sure they can move, they can externally rotate, internally rotate. Moving on to head wraps. We're moving from slow to medium to fast. Around the head, around the waist, around the knees. Head, body, knees. Wrapping around each knee, one at a time. And you could do both if you want. We're not going to go too in depth like we did in the other video, but just enough to warm us up for the next stuff. Now we move on to the pound dribble stuff. Using a more specific warm-up, the pound dribble behind the back is a good drill. It helps you work on your stationary base, maintaining balance while forcefully driving that ball into the ground. Then from that pound dribble behind the back, we move on to a pound dribble in and out. Again, still stationary. It's like quarter squat. Try not to have your nose too far forward over your feet. Just low enough to be balanced. Pound in and out dribble. Some call it a cuff. Same difference. Now here's the move live. With a little drop in and out. Real quick. The progression from that would be a light to intense in and out dribble. Again, some might call it a cuff once you add a step, but same difference. Make sure you're not carrying the ball. That cuff should be a hard pound dribble both directions. Now we move on to the V dribbles. For this one in particular, I like to use the short and long strategy where I'm using both kinds of V dribbles within the same drill. The short V dribble and the long V dribble. You want to make sure you're counting in your head or aloud so you don't lose pace. Using short and long V dribbles within the same drill. This helps avoid getting used to just only one and having to struggle with the other one, since you're learning both at the same time, integrating them into one drill. You don't have to go 100 miles per hour, but don't go super slow either. As you can see, short, long. The count a little different. I'm still counting 3 dribbles and 1 long dribble. Then I have 3 long dribbles with 1 short dribble, 2 long dribbles and 1 short dribble, 1 long dribble and 1 short dribble, as well as 3 short dribbles and 1 long dribble, 2 short dribbles and 1 long dribble, 1 short dribble and 3 long dribbles. Alternating that kind of cadence back and forth so I don't get used to a single one. Takes a while. Sounds a little confusing explaining it, but visually you can see what I'm doing. If it doesn't break your range of motion, you could also attempt to exaggerate the move as if you're doing it in a real game time situation. Moving on the pound dribble progressions. We're doing a V dribble with a quarter spin added now. So we're doing 3 V dribbles, 1 quarter spin, 2 V dribbles, 1 quarter spin, 1 V dribble, 1 quarter spin, 1 V dribble, 1 quarter spin, 1 V dribble, 1 quarter spin. Again, we pyramid the same way with most drills in general because we're only building one rhythm, even though we're using it on all drills. This helps make the learning process much easier. Again, with each move, as I get into the groove, building a rhythm, you'll be able to speed it up and slow it down, especially when you're fatigued. Building that rhythm helps enhance the skill much quicker. Once you catch the rhythm, building upon it is much easier. An example of it progressing from light to intense or slow to fast, depending on what drill you are doing. Most of your drills in general will look like that, progressing from slow to fast, only increasing the speed slightly once you've gained control of the previous speed. Now we move on to a V dribble plus a behind the back dribble. Earlier we just did a pound dribble plus the behind the back. Now we're utilizing a V dribble plus a behind the back. You could choose to do the short V dribble or a long V dribble if you want. Those V dribbles are kind of in between. I'm more focused on concentrating on the move and being quick. So at the very end, we're doing a pound dribble plus a slow spin. The reason why I'm doing a slow spin is because I'm attempting to emulate being in a small confined space such as a room or a driveway. Once you get a nice rhythm, it'll almost look like you're dancing, but you're dribbling and stuff. But the whole point again is to build that rhythm, then speed it up once you have it. We're moving on to a V dribble plus behind the back spin move. Again, these need to be done slowly. There's no point in doing them quickly. The reason why you want to do these slowly is because when you do them quickly, it is much easier to get away with doing it sloppy. But when you do it slower, it's a challenge to control when it's done slower. Now we move on to the dribble round touch drills. These are a progression for the float dribble progressions, or what some call the hang dribble. We start off touching the foot. Same side foot, opposite side foot, both side foot, both feet. You want to focus on touching the feet but not carrying the ball. So you're basically doing two things at once. Get used to squatting low enough and not holding your breath. As you can see, I'm doing the various foot touches and with different variations, but all of them are to maintain the quickness. After touching the foot, I'll move on to the actual ground touch, since the foot touch was the warm-up. The ground touches are more of a challenge, obviously, because they're a little bit lower. But I'm also using a V dribble rather than just a pound dribble or a punch dribble. The V dribble is a progression from the pound dribble. You could also experiment in a split stance if you can maintain that, but you don't necessarily have to do it. Just make sure you're not leaning too far forward. As you can see, that was more of a yo-yo, going from the side to the front. Now I progress to a between the legs plus a ground touch. Inside hand ground touch. Then after that, outside hand ground touch. Still using a 3-2-1 pyramid. Then I do both hands with a ground touch. If you do too many reps, you're more likely to lose cadence and mess up. So try to get a good pace going. Stop, then do it again before you burn yourself out or get your shoulders too tired or your legs start to burn. Get a good pace, stop. Find that good pace again with the next set. Here it is on the other side. I'm hunched over a little bit, so obviously I gotta work on that. But for the most part, both sides should look the same or as similar as possible. Try not to be the hunchback dribbler, but this will help you dribble that ball between your legs, especially if you have problems getting low enough. Only if you can maintain that position and not have a weak core, holding your breath, lack of range of motion, etc., etc. Now we progress from the stationary ground touches. Now we're going to add a little movement. We're going to add one step plus a ground touch. Again, we're going to start from slow and speed it up a little bit once we get the hang of it to medium. Then ultimately we're going to do it as quick as we can. As you can see, this is a quick attacking move to get the defender on their toes, to make sure they're ready, because they don't know how fast you are or where you're going. A move like this can startle anybody. So make sure you're focused when you're doing this move. Again, trying to touch the ground. If it's within your range of motion, attempt to exaggerate the move. If you're not messing up, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not trying hard enough, you're probably not going to be messing up. These drills are tiring, so get your break. When taking a break, raising your arm overhead helps your ribs expand while breathing. So carry that ball over your head. Take 5 deep breaths. At some point, those deep breaths will get deeper and deeper and deeper. So it'll actually take you longer to do those 5 breaths, even though it's just 5 breaths. If you still need more deep breaths after that, hold the ball with one hand. Take 5 more deep breaths. If you still need more deep breaths after that, hold it with the other hand. Take 5 more deep breaths. but you should be able to catch your breath within those 3-5 breath sets at some point. So 15 breaths may seem like a short time, but it's about a minute. Maybe a little more if you're in shape. So think about that. You have to get in shape. You can't just be doing a move and need a 4-minute break to catch your breath. Defense don't stop, so you can't either. Now that we're done with the warm-up, let's move on to some training. Now we start with the step up, square up drill. This is a gathering step progression for your triple threats, stepping into a shot, stepping into a pass, etc., etc. Most of the time when people step into a shot, they do a small step, but we're preparing you to really step into the shot. The training is the conditioning. The conditioning is part of the skill training. So as you get used to stepping in different directions, you will still step in as that hand reaches the ball. Try to make your foot contact and your hand slamming the ball happen simultaneously. Still using that 3-2-1 pyramid. My favorite kind of strategy. With each step, with each move, I always try to exaggerate it. It looks a little silly exaggerating the moves, but at some point, these exaggerated moves get smaller and smaller and more refined. It's much easier to correct and refine versus doing a small move and trying to expand it later after being used to doing that refined move for so long. Being able to expand from a big motion to a smaller motion back to a big motion is a sign of agility, and it shows great skill. So try to achieve that. Exaggerate those movements. Step as far as you can, as comfortably as you can. You don't have to go 100%, but you can make it a strong 80. The next drill we're working on is the speed stop drill. Of course, we start off slowly. The first stop is just double punch dribble. Maintaining that control and not losing balance when stopping randomly. These are all part of a slow and go progression. Again, using a 3-2-1 pyramid, 3 casual dribbles plus a double dribble, 2 casual dribble plus a double dribble, 1 casual dribble plus a double dribble. Again, working on the slow and go progression. With each drill, I like to throw the ball out and catch it as if I actually got the pass thrown at me, just to train that in there. These speed stop drills are good for working on your first step, learning to maintain control while exploding from a stationary base. Now we're extending that double punch dribble with a large lunging step. The next progression is a quick stop, a quick hopping stop, or a hopping step. Again, still using the double punch dribble, not losing our balance or falling over once we land, utilizing good core strength to maintain an upright position, absorbing that landing, learning how to decelerate, building that base for a change of direction, or even pulling up. Try Try to maintain that dribble in front of your knee. Don't dribble too far outside your body. It's a higher chance for you to lose it, and if there was a defender in front of you, building those bad habits will give them more of a chance of stealing it. So try to dribble that ball in front of your knee. Keep your hand over the ball. Dribble straight into the ground. One trick is to think about shooting into the ground. The next progression on the speed stop drill is a punch dribble plus a jab, or punch dribble jab. First we did a double dribble, then we did a dribble plus a lunging step, dribble plus a speed stop. Now we have a punch dribble jab. The punch dribble jab is a good way to stop if necessary, as well as check a defender. Still part of the slow and go progression, in case you needed to take off from that next move. It's also a good way to build a hesitation. With the punch dribble jab, we add a little pocket dribble, but nothing too crazy. The waist turns a little bit to give the illusion that we pocketed the ball, but really it's just a slight waist turn. And we use that elastic force to retract back and punch into the ground. As you can see, it resembles the quarter turn we did earlier. Quick turn and a quick return back. But today was just a warm-up, something light, just to get the newfound skill going, get the ball rolling. Next time, we're going to step things up a little bit. Make sure you're ready for that. But don't forget, this is just the foundation to the foundation. The tip of the iceberg. Don't get too excited. I love the simple stuff, but this is just the beginning. Don't give up. Don't slack off. I know things are crazy out there, so you need to get even more crazy on the court. This is your time to shine. You may get better today, you may get better tomorrow, but whatever you do, step your game up.